Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. Okay, we are delighted to welcome you all to the ISI webinar series. I believe this is our first ISI webinar series for the year, organized by the Institute of Sultan Iskandar in collaboration with Green Cities and Construction Research Group, Razak Faculty, UTM. Okay, thank you to those watching live from Facebook page, our Facebook page, ISI Facebook page, and also the Green Cities and Construction Facebook page. Okay, before I introduce you to our first panel today, or maybe I will introduce the 4 panels straight away, I would like to share some housekeeping tips to those participants watching live from WebEx, or as well as the Facebook Live. Okay, today's webinar is being recorded and aired via the Facebook page, as I mentioned just now. And you can revisit the content yourself if you are unable to stay throughout the whole session. And we also welcome you to share this webinar session with friends and colleagues that you may feel might benefit from. Okay, we welcome any comments, and then our secretariat will monitor the Q&A chat box in the WebEx, as well as the comment sections in the Facebook pages. Okay. Also, we encourage you to send your questions at any point throughout the session. Questions will be either posed to the panel after their presentation, or we will hold it at the end of the discussion session at the end of the event. Okay, if you are joining via WebEx, if you got connected at any time, do join back in and our secretary will let you in. All right, I think that's all for the housekeeping tips. Now I think we are ready to start the panels. You all ready?
Yep.
Okay, so thank you again for joining us. Okay, the title of the ISI webinar series today is Going Green, Moving On with COVID-19, the Road Towards a Sustainable Built Environment. Okay, our first panel is Dato A.R. Izmi Harzani Ismail. He is currently the president of Pusat Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia. And he is also a member of the focus group in dealing with construction permit formed under Pemuda since 2012, and a board member of the Board of Architects Malaysia and Board of Engineers Malaysia as well. He was recently re-elected as the president of PAM for the year 2020-2021 term after completion of his 2 terms presidency in 2017 to 2019. In architecture practice, he is a well-known architect and a director of Architect MAA Sdn Bhd, one of the larger architecture practices and a winner of various awards, including PAM Architecture Awards, CNBC Asia Pacific Property Award, MIP Excellence in Planning Awards, as well as BCI Asia Top 10 Architects Award. In his career with Architect MAA, he led the implementation of many projects, including hospitals, housings, offices, and hotels. He is also the recipient of the Royal Institute of British Architects RIBA President's Medal in 2019. He graduated with a bachelor degree in Housing, Building and Planning and Bachelor of Architecture from USM, Penang. And he is also a UTM alumni with Masters of Philosophy in Policy Studies. Okay, the floor is all yours, Dato A.R. Izmi. You can start sharing your slide.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. And Assalamualaikum and good morning. First of all, I think I would like to thank ISI and also UTM for inviting me to talk during this session. Okay, so let me share my slide. Okay, can you see the slide now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I was given this topic, which is quite wide in terms of the engagement and then the element, because we talk about built environment actually is very wide. Built environment actually related to construction, which actually the biggest ecosystem in this world. So how are we going to live in the next new normal? Okay, so what is the next normal? I start with this question because after this COVID-19 pandemic, we are having a lot of issues, not just in terms of built environment development and construction, but also the way we live every day. But according to the research, okay, COVID-19 actually give the biggest impact to the world's largest ecosystem, which is construction. Construction is the biggest world ecosystem because it involves not just the construction activities itself, but also involve the supply of building material, research, providing of spaces for the people, job opportunity, and many other things. And COVID-19 actually accelerates the disruption and for the shifting to the new normal. Previously, we know that there are technologies out there that can change the way we do things, including for construction and development. But we are so reluctant in adopting the system until we are pushed to it. For example, the webinar that we are having now. Previously, if you want to have webinar, not many people will say that I want to join the webinar. But now, due to this pandemic, everybody are getting more familiar with the webinar and online meeting. So this is one of the example. And in construction, the relation between construction and built environment and how COVID-19 influenced the activities today. If you look at this is the conventional construction environment. So with this pandemic, this cannot be done anymore. We cannot have a big amount of workers on the construction site. So it has to be changed. So rather than depending on the labor workforce on site, the construction technology has to be changed. But the technology is already there. For example, the modular construction system, what you can see on the slide, and the digital industrialized building system, and in the two picture at the bottom of the slides. This is readily available and it's now being used, but it's not widely accepted by the industry today. So this COVID maybe is the accelerator for these changes, okay? Because this will reduce the number of laborers and workers that you need on the construction site. This is just a comparison how the conventional construction ecosystem, this is what we employ in most of the construction projects. This analysis by McKinsey, if you look at a comparison analogy of 4 different projects where actually it's not coordinated because 4 different projects, different clients, so everything has been done sequential from the development, design, engineering, up to the supply of material, components, storage, logistic, construction, time at the end, delivery of the building system. And if you notice that here, there is no interrelation and coordination between different projects. Everything actually was planned in silo. But with the new technology, so the new construction ecosystem that we expect to come in the near future is that where we need to use more modular system, more standardization, integration in terms of the building component. And this is how it should be. So maybe several projects or many projects that can be coordinated, especially when delivering the building components. Okay, talking about modular system, IBS system, so that the design process can be done earlier. Building components can be prefabricated for various projects. So that will reduce the number or amount of activities required at site. And most of the activity will be done in controlled environment in the factory. And then what we need is coordination for logistic and assembling the component to deliver building. So this is in terms of the construction. So the activities actually in the new ecosystem can be wider, not just on the component, building component and construction at site itself, but may including providing the software, the system development, design development, engineering, fabrication, research on the building component, installation, coordination, until at the end, the actual construction and assembly actually just a small part of the whole delivery process. So the earlier part actually can be done off-site, including the prefabricated program at the factory also can be done off-site. So this is the new shift that is already happening, but very slow. So I think that with this pandemic, that may accelerate the whole changes. And talking about construction, what about buildings and built environment? With the new technology, with IBS, with modular system, recently Hong Kong just completed the first project, they call it MIC, Modular Integrated Construction. So I think that will accelerate the future construction process. So we don't need to spend 3-4 years on construction site. China has shown some example. Hospital can be built just a matter of weeks. And with that, actually, it accelerates the growth of the construction and land development. So this is a picture of our city, Kuala Lumpur. We can see that number of buildings surrounding KLCC Twin Tower, and this is how the future megacity is going to look like. Okay, so if it is not properly controlled, and talking about building and sustainability, so the first impression when we talk about sustainability, we talk about green. So the easier or the earlier part of advocating green building always has this reflection that green building has to be green, or you need to have a vertical planting, vertical feature wall with green. So this was the earlier part where actually people need to be educated, but not just. But today, I think the awareness on the green building actually is wider. So people start to understand that it's not just about planting plant on the wall or the feature wall, but it is more than that. And this is our own project. This is our project. Our project in next to KLCC, Lenouvelle Tower. This is the project that we coordinate with John Nouvel from France. So this is one of our earlier approach how to try to express what the green building is. Okay, I cannot say further whether it's successful or not. Okay, it depends on the acceptance of the public. Some people say, no, you don't need to put plant on the wall, okay, to tell people that this is green building. But this is the earlier part of how we can educate the general public that there are many things that possible, many things can be done. Okay, the next project, okay, this is another project which is also rated as green building goal. This is a public bank tower in Jalan Raja Chulan. This is exactly a different example. There is no planting on the wall at all, but this project actually focused on the energy efficiency and with the application of shading devices and selection of proper material that we managed to reduce heat penetration into the building and reduce the consumption of energy. There's so much to talk about green building. And as PAM president, I think I should also talk about Green Building Index. The green building, I'm not going to talk very detail about this. So just to relate with the awareness of sustainability and green building design. So GBI, Green Building Index 2 actually was launched in 2008. And after 10 years, we start to measure the success of these tools. So this initiative actually started jointly with PAM and Association of Consulting Engineers in Malaysia. So we measure the certain element or component of sustainable element in the building construction and in the building development, including energy efficiency, indoor environment quality, material and resources, in innovation in the development of water efficiency, including sustainable site planning as well. So these are the history when it was publicly launched in 2009 until today. So as of today, there are more than 200 million square feet of green building has been certified locally in Malaysia, and in 2019, we have certified more than 200 million, and as of today, it's approximately 250 million square feet. So what this actually translate to sustainable development? This diagram try to show that 22 million square meter, or roughly about 250 million square feet, has now been certified, which is equivalent to 56 Petronas Twin Towers. So imagine that we have already certified 56 Petronas Twin Towers as a green buildings. That's how the impact to our environment and our industry today. So this is the diagram, okay, in terms of reduction of carbon emission. You can have all these details. PAM actually published this book, Greening Malaysia, in 2019. In 2019, so the book is available. So more details are available from the book, the publication. And the reduction in carbon dioxide is equivalent to reduction of number of cars, 243,000 from the road. So the effort that we have done so far, it is still not satisfying to us. We stay putting more effort to have more reduction in terms of carbon production. Then, and this number actually equivalent to 21% of reduction in terms of number of cars in the state of Selangor. We did this comparison or analogy so that it's easier for public to understand what are the benefits, and the same carbon reduction also translated. It can be translated into greening 22 times of Kuala Lumpur, which is also cover about 5,457 square kilometer forest. Okay, so we talk about green sustainability, and the key issue for sustainable built environment actually lies in the planning activities. So we know that all over the world, people try to develop land, and some other part of the world actually, due to scarcity of land, they start going into waters. So they start to reclaim land. Even in our country, also in Malaysia, there's some reclamation project. In fact, we have done the reclamation project in Sandakan, Sabah as well, and I think even other states, including Penang, they are quite active in reclamation project. And unfortunately, most of the time, the planning for development actually is vehicular oriented. So it's not so much people oriented. So most of the time, the major planning grid are planned based on the traffic or vehicular movement. So this is what happened when the priority is given to vehicular movement. So you can see multiple layers of the motor vehicle network, and this is what we can see today: more development, more roads, more cars, and you need more building for cars, but still you cannot resolve the traffic issues. So this was a study done, okay, by the International Sustainability Institute. They tried to make a comparison how 200 people occupying 177 cars occupy almost 5,000 square meter of space statically without moving. So when they are static, there are about 5,000 square meter of space. But if people ride on bicycle, the same number of people, 200 people ride on 200 bicycle, they only occupy 720 square meter, which is only 1/7 of the space that required to provide the facility for cars. I mean, the space on the road. And if the public use buses, okay, for 200 people, 3 buses are required, then it's only 168 square meter. And if public use LRT with 2 coaches for 200 people, it's only 96 square meter. So it shows that using public transport actually can reduce from 5,000 to only 96 square meters. So it can reduce the space for infrastructure for the vehicular network by 50 times if we travel or we use public transport, especially the rail system. Okay, but okay, this is just an analogy. Okay, this is not social or physical distancing due to pandemic. Okay, but this is the analogy to show that how people are separated. Okay, when they sit in the car, so these are the space that require, and you can see actually there are more space if we put away the cars. So for a good planning with people-oriented planning, I think many cities now looking into giving back the road to the people instead of for the car. So many roads now has been reclaimed to be pedestrianized. This is one of the example, and this is in Jalan Aloy. So you can see that how the night activity can be very lively, and people can use the road to socialize and any other activities as well. The issue is that with this current pandemic, this now is restricted. Okay, so we cannot have that social gathering in tight spaces. We cannot have event like the one that I showed just now. So under the current situation, we are prohibited from doing such gathering. So how are we going to live with coronavirus? So living with coronavirus actually is not something new. We have been living with coronavirus for a couple of decades or many decades ago. From the statistic, actually, the human being have been living with various pandemic before. Okay, including I think among the bigger and the earlier one, I think is a plague of Justinian that actually the death toll of 30 to 50 million people, and bubonic plague with 200 million deaths, and smallpox in the 16th century, 56 million deaths. Okay, and a few other things, other pandemic in the 17th century, 3 million, 18th century, 600,000. But the quite recent one in the 19th century is cholera outbreak, which causes 1 million deaths. And the Spanish flu, among one of the biggest in the earlier 20th century, which is about 40 to 50 million deaths. So this is after the modern pandemic, the Russian flu, 1 million. And of course, we are still living with HIV and AIDS, which actually estimated between 25 to 35 million deaths. And in 1960s, 1957 to 58, we have Asian flu, Hong Kong flu before the 70s, and we have SARS in 2002, 2003, swine flu, about 200,000 deaths in 2009 to 2010. And currently, we are dealing with COVID-19, about almost 1 million deaths. So we have been going through all this pandemic all the time, but we do not really see major changes in terms of our built environment. Why? One of the issues is that the natural process of human immune system development. For example, the Asian flu and Hong Kong flu in the 50s and 60s, okay, the improvement in the immune system actually helped people to go through this situation, this pandemic. So then it becomes so that people can live with it. So it doesn't really give major impact to the people. But today we are still in the process of recovering. We are still in the process of finding the vaccine and also how to improve the immune system so that we can live with COVID-19. So human health and well-being are affected by building design and its operation at places where they live, work, and play. So we all know that we can be easily affected by the building, the workspace, with stress and so on. So that time, this is the finding by the International Wellbuilding Institute. So the time has come to elevate human health and comfort to the forefront of building practices and reinvent buildings that are not only better for the planet but also for the people. So I think we have developed locally the green rating tools for about 12 years since 2008. Maybe it's now for us to move forward next beyond green, which is the wellness. So rather than just focus on the well-being of the planet, maybe we should focus on the well-being of the human who is going to occupy the building as well. So there are five wellness elements that I think we should focus. Okay, this will help also to improve our immunity and to strengthen our body to live together with COVID-19. So the five elements including health, stress level, energy level, happiness, and motivation. Happiness and motivation play a very important role actually to improve our immune system. So these are among the elements that we need to incorporate in our building design. Okay, looking from the bigger perspective, planning into a very macro level into the building design itself. For example, the building design has to have certain elements to encourage people to walk. Simple design improvement can encourage more walking. People like to move. Okay, if the walking is entertaining, so we need to provide environment that encourage people to walk. Okay. So these are some of the example why actually two different buildings are being connected through the link bridge and to encourage people to walk and travel and fire access. This is our project in the Ecurve. So actually this is the fire emergency access, but we transform into pedestrian. Of course, during emergency, it still can be used as fire access. And the staircase design, for example, to encourage people to use the staircase rather than the lift. But if the staircase is hidden or enclosed, sometimes people so reluctant, or maybe they are not, they don't feel secure to use the staircase. And we need to provide more breakout spaces so that people can live happily. A change pace in working environment help to increase productivity as well. I have a few slides on this, but I think I do not have much time. I have to skip some of these. So facilitate access to green space. Maybe it's good to have green terraces. Okay, indoor air quality. Now with the technology, we can improve using certain type of filter. It can improve the indoor air quality. Even the selection of material also helps to produce the VOC gases. And this is among the issues that affect the indoor quality. One of the major issue, which is 50% according to the research, actually inadequate ventilation. So natural ventilation and indoor air mixing is very important. We should not rely 100% on indoor mechanical ventilation system. And to encourage people to drink water, and the light, of course, light plays very important role to the production of our hormone and different light actually give different impact. So we have to understand the color tone that we are going to use. And comfort, of course, okay, sometimes we sit 8 to 10 hours a day. Many officers now start to provide with a standing desk so that they can do the work while standing, and selection of furniture to make sure that it's comfortable. So these are among the elements that can be incorporated into the building. And fitness, of course, provide more open staircases. Okay. And this is one of our project. Basically, we try to encourage people to mix around. Okay, in this example, actually, may not be possible today due to the pandemic, but we hope one day we can still enjoy such a facility or placemaking like that. So at the end, so this is my last slide. So whatever the technology that we have, the development concept that we have to remember that we still live within the nature. So if we do not preserve the resources or we do not respect our nature, the nature will start to claim back their territory. So I remember during the early part of the COVID pandemic, where I think some of the country, Western country, also in Japan, when the animals start to occupy the city and start coming on the road. So I think we must respect the nature. And I remember those days where actually the way the architecture was built is very sustainable. We use a local material, the local building material, and how you can see that the boy is showering from the water from the well, and then the water goes to the ground, naturally filter back to the underground water. So everything was done naturally. So that's my view for the moment. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think I will stop the slide sharing. So back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you, Dato. And also thank you for keeping to the 20-minute time limit. Yes. Okay, it's very interesting where you have mentioned many times about living together with COVID-19, and then the role where the green building, how we need to have green buildings, and then have to have, proper space planning to ensure that people can stay indoor, and while having that high quality of working space and also indoor quality. So I have one question from I think it's from Prof. Said. It's a very interesting question. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Said, you're there? Okay, the question from Said, I think, okay, this is a very good point where he pointed out that open and flexible access may create a sense of friendliness in a public building, but in the event of a pandemic, this kind of planning could be a hazard to public health. Okay, how does building design and space planning approach on this point? So I think this is quite yeah, it's quite tricky to address. But however, one way or another, we need to think out of the box to look into this issue. What do you think about it, Dato AR?
Yeah, I expect such a question. I know that, okay, because we have been advocating public spaces and then socializing to create the happiness among the people dwelling in the city. Um, of course, okay, but we have to remember, okay, we don't need to have our knee jerk, okay. There shouldn't be immediate reaction to it, okay, but we have to respond to it properly. I just give you example. Before we went through many pandemic before, but after the pandemic is over, everything back to normal. Many people are saying that no, don't expect everything go back to normal. Yes, I do agree with that, but you cannot put everybody in the shared space where actually they cannot interact with outdoor at all. So what we need to do in planning, basically, we must have flexibility in planning. So when there's a need, okay, to contain certain epidemic, okay, then we must have that flexibility. For example, I just give you example in Putrajaya. It's quite interesting. Putrajaya was planned with a center core island in the middle, and then they have a lake all around it, and there are bridges. Okay, in the case of very serious pandemic, just example, okay, in the case of very serious pandemic, the control can be easily done. So people who reside inside the core island can be controlled because the core island itself has facility that required by the people, so that the movement can be controlled, protection can be applied, and then supply of food, energy, resources is still there. So what we need to do is that I think we can have a good planning, good master plan, but the gateway is very important. Whenever we need to shut down, okay, in inverted commas, shut down. Whenever actually we need to help a movement control, what we need to do is that at the gateway point where actually we can control the borders. But people within the area or certain zoning, they should be allowed, okay, to move and to do the activities. So planning is very important to have a safe, self-contained element. Okay, for example, I always advocate, even if it is possible in one building, you should have hospital, you should have schools. Okay, because now under mixed development project, sometimes you can have multiple elements. You can have offices, residential component. Maybe you can have small hospital or clinics and schools. So when that happen, we can say that okay, this mixed development, this area, okay, we have to contain the population or the people there due to certain restriction, maybe not just pandemic, maybe earthquake or certain thing, and they can still survive. They can still do their normal activity if we provide all what they need within that development. So that's why I think the future development should focus more mixed development with multiple component in that development.
Yes, I agree so much, Dato. We're talking about sustainable cities now. We're talking about compact cities
Yeah,
where everything is just within reach,
yeah,
within walking distance if possible.
yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dato, for that such insightful sharing you gave us just now. And then now we move to our second panel. Um, we move to our second panel. IR Kim Bok Tai. His topic is on green buildings and COVID-19. I think he will detail what Dato Izumi have mentioned just now. Now he's going to look into optimizing the quality of indoor spaces. I Kim Bok Tan. Okay, let me share brief about his background. IR Kim Bok Tan is a director of IN Consultants in Berhad. Uh, IEN Consultant is an environmentally sustainable design specialist consultant based in Malaysia. Okay, he is a qualified professional engineer with practicing certificate registered with the Board of Engineers Malaysia. And the Institution of Engineers Malaysia is a qualified GBI, Green Building Index Malaysia. So I think IR Kim Boktan will eventually carry through the sharing by Dato Izumi just now very well. He is also the facilitator and commissioning specialist and a professional member of MGBC. He has been involved in the design, fine-tuning, and green certification of some very ambitious green projects in Malaysia, including Menara Kejeraya Tower, which was the first high-rise government office building in Malaysia to achieve GBI Platinum certification, as well as awarded the runner-up at the Asian Energy Awards. Okay, prior to joining IEN in 2011, he spent around 10 years with a multidisciplinary engineering, international engineering consulting firm where he was involved in mechanical and electrical services, building design, and also implementation. This experience provided him with the understanding and insight to how local engineers approach building services design and thus places him in a good position to propose strategies to optimize the design. So with his background, I feel that he is the right person to talk about green buildings and COVID-19. So the floor is all yours, Mr. IR Kim Boktai. You can start sharing your slide. Again, you will be given 20 minutes um, to share your thoughts and sharing on this matter.
Thank you, Nurul. Thank you once again to ISI for inviting me to join this webinar. It's an interesting topic and very sort of valid for today's environment. But as Dr. Izumi has mentioned in his session, what I will also try to cover is something that we should be incorporating in our buildings, not as a knee-jerk reaction, but as a long-term design solutions to improve buildings in general. So I will share my slide now. Okay. So you can see my slide?
Yes, it's very
Okay.
clear.
Okay, good. Okay, so firstly, I would just like to start off with how I would define a green building. I think we get asked a lot as green building consultants, especially from people who are not from the construction background. What exactly do we do? And of course, the next question is, what is a green building? I mean, this definition, of course, differs from person to person or from organization to organization. But this is how I have, so far tried to explain. Firstly, it's a building which seeks to improve the occupant experience and well-being. It seeks to reduce the life cycle costs and cost of ownership to the building owner, and it seeks to reduce the negative impact of the building on the environment, both during construction as well as during operation. So of course, there's a triple bottom line here. You want to focus on the final end user, the occupants. You want to be able to address issues concerning the building owner, and of course, finally, equally important, you also don't want to neglect the environment. Okay. So this is somewhat has been covered by Dr. Izumi just now, but I will just run through this as well. How has COVID changed the way we use buildings? Firstly, as we all are experiencing, it has because of social distancing, there's a lot lower occupancy in buildings. Buildings were designed for a higher occupancy are now seeing only maybe half the occupancy, especially when it comes to offices and which are still implementing alternate work weeks, for example. Secondly, people are spending more time working from home, like I am here today taking this webinar from home. And additionally, they are also spending more time indoors because of the earlier restrictions. Now, of course, in Malaysia, we're allowed to move about a bit more freely in the country, so that's good. But generally, I think most of us, due to sort of concerns, we are still sort of spending a bit more time indoors. And of course, thirdly, face-to-face meetings are being replaced with video conferences and webinars. So people are having to take this sort of calls in the privacy of offices or at home rather than grouping together in the office. So firstly, how should we, what are the strategies that I'm proposing we should do to allow buildings to adapt? Firstly, we really need to look at better air quality. I think this is something that follows through very well from Dr. Izumi's earlier presentation about air quality. In fact, the Guardian newspaper recently published an article about how indoor carbon dioxide levels could be a health hazard to us. And in an excerpt from that article actually says that in a study of 24 employees, the cognitive scores were 50% lower when the participants were exposed to 1,400 ppm of CO2, compared with those who are exposed to 550 ppm during a working day. So since most of us spend at least sort of 8 hours a day in the office, this is a very serious concern. What I'll do is I'll present you with some numbers from measurements that we've done in some of the projects we've been involved in. So this first measurement is of CO2 levels taken at an office space that has sufficient ventilation. When I say sufficient, means it meets the recommended levels in ASHRAE 62.1 as well as the local codes and the bylaws. This is, of course, the DOSH recommended limit, DOSH, which stands for Department of Occupational Safety and Health. They recommend a long-term exposure of no more than 1,000 ppm. So that's where the 1,000 is on this graph. And in a well-ventilated office, the level stays below 1,000 ppm throughout the day. So that's a good level. I mean, of course, not as low as 550, but well below 1,000 ppm. So this would be a safe and healthy exposure. Now, if we look at another measurement, actually this is from exactly the same development, but this particular office, due to the design of the mechanical air conditioning system, this particular space uses split units and therefore doesn't have a dedicated outdoor air supply. And therefore it's insufficiently ventilated. You can see, I'll show you next on what sort of level it achieves. So now, of course, the DOSH recommended level once again 1,000, and the recorded levels now are going from, and this is recorded around 11 a.m. up to just 12 p.m. over just 1 hour on a work day. It goes from 1,400 up to 1,550. So that's way above the recommended limit for our exposure, for a long-term exposure. So this, of course, goes to my point about sufficient ventilation, where rather than a purely a recirculating air conditioning system that we have in a lot of buildings, especially those using split air conditioners, as well as homes, actually, not just offices. Most homes, in fact, purely, majority of homes use split air conditioners. We need to firstly ensure that there is sufficient outdoor air that is pre-treated so that you have humidity control. Next, as an additional tier to that, we should consider introducing some sort of filtration. One interesting note here is that outdoor air in earlier guides, in earlier air conditioning and ventilation guides used to be called fresh air because outdoor air used to be, it can be assumed to be fresh. But over time, they changed that terminology to call it outdoor air, since you can no longer guarantee that outdoor air is fresh air. So this is where some form of filtration would be important. And one option would be to provide a MERV 13 or higher rating filters purely on the outdoor air intake. This would also be good to address the issues regarding haze. We get that we have Malaysia has two seasons, hot and raining, and the other one being a haze season. So this would of course help buildings adapt to the issue of haze as well. Thirdly, this is of course addressing more recent concerns to do with Covid-19, as well as other sort of issues related to sick building syndrome, is to employ some sort of sterilization system into the air conditioner. I mean, one option which is being promoted now is the ultraviolet germicidal irradiation system. This sort of technology has been used quite commonly at hospitals, where air quality and sterilization is more crucial. But of course, with growing concerns of air quality in office, we are also seeing this being considered for non-residential, retail, or commercial type environments. Next, I am proposing that buildings should be designed to better adapt to lower occupancy. Once again, I'm showing data from one of our projects measurements. We did a data of this, a lot of our green building projects on the temperature and humidity to verify the performance of the system. So on this graph here, the left axis is the temperature ranging from 18 to 32 degrees. The right axis is relative humidity. So I've colored it where blue range is the comfortable temperature recommended in MS 1525, which is between 23.5 to maybe about 25. And the yellow range, yes, yellow band here represents the recommended relative humidity, which is about 55, 70%. So this is on a working day, Monday to Tuesday. Where I've blanked out is when the air conditioner will be turned on. So when the air conditioner is turned on in this office, temperature starts dropping, and you can see that immediately it goes down to almost 21 degrees in the early part of the day, so in the morning. And in Malaysia, actually, contrary to common perception, it's actually in a lot of days it's cooler in the evenings because it's usually raining. It's cloudy and it potentially rains, and that's exactly what happened on this particular day that we measured. And because it was cloudy or raining on that day, temperature further dropped to 19 degrees. So this is 19 degrees in an office building in Malaysia. You can imagine that's definitely uncomfortable for the occupants in that space. And of course, this isn't just unique to one day. On the following day as well, it came down to almost 20 degrees Celsius. So what we're seeing here is essentially because of the disparity between design versus actual operations. And these measurements, bear in mind, were before social distancing, before the current SOP of alternate work weeks. So what's happening? Engineers design possibly maybe 10 meters square per person and a design for 24 to 25 degrees Celsius. Um, what's actually happening when the building operates, and this is before COVID, could be 20 meters square per person. So people are out for meetings, people are having meetings internally, some people are on MC, or just the fact that spaces are designed with larger workstations and larger rooms for senior staffing, resulting in lower occupancy count for the entire floor. So that's already fewer people. So then with COVID-19 SOP, you are seeing even lower occupancies. We're looking at up to 30 meters square per person or even more. So this means that the system fails to adapt. It isn't capable to adapt to a very low occupancy and usage. And even at its lowest setting, it's still going to cool the space down to way below what is deemed comfortable. So then you have people wearing jackets, you have people complaining that it's too chilly, and you people who are a bit more sensitive may fall sick. So this becomes an issue with more people getting ill, illness, as well as higher energy costs or unnecessarily high energy costs for the building owner. Okay. Next, we're looking at balancing privacy versus the need for interaction and promoting interaction. Um, so what we have done in our projects as well is issue out occupant comfort surveys where we ask the end users, the occupants, the staffing, what they think of the building in terms of temperature, in terms of lighting, in terms of noise as well. And of course, one of the key concerns we have is with noise. And we ask them, what is the source of what's the key sources of your noise discomfort? And this is not unique to this particular survey. We see this in quite a few of our projects already, that the main comments have been, the top three complaints we're seeing quite frequently is people saying that they are disturbed by other people's conversations, noises from other work activities, and people overhearing my private conversation. So this is of course before COVID, before we are doing a lot more video conferencing on our computers, before we're taking more calls as well. And people are already complaining that these are source of interruptions to their workday. What's basically happened is we have taken a traditional office design, which was very partitioned up. This was common in up to the late 80s, early 90s, where everyone had a cubicle for their own privacy so that they can work as private as possible without seeing, or at least not so disturbed by what happens around them. But of course, the disadvantage of this was there was little interaction between colleagues. For example, this person here will find it very difficult to have a quick question or chat with his neighbor right across. So subsequently, we moved on to a very open office system. We went the polar opposite. We had started adopting very open office systems. In fact, most corporate offices, you walk in now, you will see this arrangement where there are rows and rows of tables, and it's basically an open office plan. with some private rooms just for high-level management. So of course, the benefit of this, we don't deny, is you get better view out, get better daylight, and it also encourages good interaction between the people, which it's good for brainstorming, it's good for coming up with new ideas, and also generally as human beings, we enjoy interaction. But of course, like I showed earlier, it generates the complaint of a disturbance, whether visual or noise, causing disruption to getting work done. So what we're seeing changes, and I think that's a good sort of compromise, is where offices, open offices, are taking advantage of scenarios of the private office versus the open office, is to create more and more of these pods or call booths where, as and when necessary, someone uses these to either make conference calls, have quick discussions, of two persons, or just take personal calls. This way, you don't disturb other people, as well as other people's conversations in the office do not interrupt you as well. So it's a good compromise, and because these are small and can be placed around the office, they also don't block as much of the view out for people on the inside of the office compared to, let's say, arrangement on the left. Finally, this is my sort of last point. We need to give occupants more control. Um, and what I mean by that is, in a lot of projects, if you try to see if you look for the air conditioning thermostat, which measures the temperature of the space, you will find that they're located on the ceiling and they are not reachable. They're out of reach of the occupant. So the occupant has no control over the temperature. The most they can do is complain, make a remark to the facility managers, and hopefully the guy makes the change fast enough. And the problem is, because of our current trend with very glazed buildings with a lot of facade, the temperature you feel in the space is so dependent on how bright or how sunny it is outside. It changes very quickly every hour. So if I'm sitting at a parameter, I may be complaining it's cold one moment, but the moment the cloud moves away and it's sunny, I may then find it's warm. So I can't keep repeating this process of calling the facility managers. Oh, I can, but he won't have the time to keep changing for 1,000 occupants in the building. So what can be done is providing localized control, moving that controller down to an accessible level, let the occupants decide the temperature they want to achieve. Of course, we can, in the interest of maintaining good energy efficiency, we can put a recommended set point. In fact, a lot of building systems allow a pre-programmed minimum temperature that you can set. So even if the occupant goes to this particular thermostat and tries to, let's say, change it to 21 degrees, the system will ignore that command and maintain at maybe a minimum of 22 or 23. So that we can give control, but we can avoid overcooling as well. And the same goes for lighting. Ceiling lights, rather than ceiling lights providing 100% of illumination and it's just fixed overall throughout the space, we can move towards a more a system that allows a balance of daylight, task light, as well as ceiling light. So the ceiling lights are now designed just for background illumination, for circulation, for moving about, but not for the tasks that people need to perform at their own desk. Let's say for background illumination, you may need 200 lux. So the ceiling lights provide the 200 lux. And for, let's say, reviewing drawings or working on your computer, you need 3 to 500 lux. So that could be achieved by personal task light. So this is localized. You get a much brighter lighting and your own personal control as and when you want that. Furthermore, this also allows, in this image I'm showing also has generous view out and daylight. Of course, we also have to be cautious about daylight. There's concerns of glare. So in our study and optimization, we always look at how to bring in what we call usable daylight, which is comfortable diffuse lighting. Okay, so that concludes my points.
All right. Thank you, IR Kim. It's a very good sharing from you. Moving on with COVID-19, we can see that the Green Building Index is already there, actually, to ensure that our indoor spaces, the occupant experience and the well-being of the occupants within indoor buildings to be secured and of high quality.
Yes.
However, the balance is that we need to ensure the balance between the privacy and also the interaction. The efficient use of the space.
Mhm.
So right now, from having like 10 people in a space, so with COVID-19 and social distancing, we need to move. We need a larger space to ensure that the SOP is adapted.
Mhm.
And I have few questions from you. For you. So, but I think I'll just pose one question first.
Okay.
Okay. So, in your opinion, there's with all the changes that we need to adapt to. So, do you suggest that there is a need to revise our current policy? What are the suggested policy change in relation to green building required to embrace the new norms? How do you look into this issue of in terms of policy to do we need to always maintain the social distancing or what do you think, IRK?
Okay. So that's quite a wide topic or question to address. But I think in general, maybe when it comes to buildings, especially when it comes to how buildings are being, how comfortable, how well buildings are designed for the occupants. There currently isn't I wouldn't say policy, but any requirement for submission or authority review or even audit. Why we have this sort of information for different projects is because those projects target for green certification and therefore has had the need to measure and quantify that they achieve that those goals in terms of indoor air quality, in terms of temperature, comfortable temperature, in terms of lighting, in terms of glare and noise. So I mean, there is two ways to skin the cat, so to speak. One way, which is what Singapore normally adapts, is by implementing policy. Putting in place rules to that um, all developers or all building owners have to either currently meet or eventually meet by a certain timeline. But the other option is a lot more sort of voluntary, where if we can show more and more that green buildings or buildings which are certified green actually operate and are more conducive for end users, and people see value in that, then hopefully, progressively, more and more people will adopt that in the right way, in a manner that actually benefits the end user, not just whether it's a certificate on the wall. So with that, more and more audits and verifications are done to ensure that it actually meets the intended sort of wellness goals.
Okay, thank you very much for that insightful sharing.
Sure.
Um, and I think now we move on to our third panel. Okay, all right, and now we move on with our third panel, Dr. Yasmin Rashid. Dr. Yasmin will talk on empowering community for sustainable for, sus- for sustainable living with COVID-19 pandemic. Um, okay, Dr. Yasmin Rashid, she is currently the Sustainability Director for Lendlease Malaysia. And then she is a biologist by profession, environmentalist by passion. Yasmin has 20 years of experience and knowledge in environmental management, community development, strategic partnerships for sustainability and social responsibility in Malaysia. She is also involved in various community mobilization and research-based programs on issues related to sustainability. And Yasmin has experiences in organizational, leadership, and personal development, as well as people management, organizational, financial management, supervision, and project management. She also serves as a mentor for various national programs on entrepreneurships, leadership, sustainability, youth, a mentor for various empowerment, women empowerment, and environmental research and human health. Today, Yasmin works for Lendlease to build sustainable precinct and also implement strategies that contribute high social impacts and values to communities while support and implement decarbonization effects. In her spare time, Yasmin indulges in creative projects and activities. She also volunteers regularly for local environmental and social NGOs. She is also the president and founder of Equinite, an environmental NGO, and she is currently the country director of sustainability with Lendlease Malaysia. Okay, the floor is all yours, Yasmin.
Thanks, Nurul. Thank you so much. Sorry for the lengthy profile read. So thanks to UTM for having me on board. And I think as the third speaker, maybe a bit of a caveat as well. I'm not trained as an engineer or a designer. So I think my perspective on what is a sustainable environment is very much drawing on all the multi-dimensional aspects of sustainability. So before we move to zoom in into COVID-19 and what are its impacts on sustainable built environment, I'd just like to share high-level facts, which I think should be just general knowledge these days. We all are aware that the world is becoming increasingly urbanized. I think KL is growing pretty fast on a daily basis in terms of the kind of urban migration we see coming in for whether it's for work or to do your daily things. Since 2007, more than half of the world's population are already in cities, and that number is projected to increase to another 50% by 2030. So if KL currently has 3 to 4 million people this year, by 2030, you would see it increasing to another 50%. So with that more number of people coming in, clearly it demonstrates that cities and metropolitan areas are powerhouses of economic growth. But when more people come in and we're developing well, they're also responsible for contributing to 70% of global carbon emissions and also 60% of resource use. So as cities are growing and as rapid urbanization is happening, you're gonna see a strain or stress on infrastructure and services. You're gonna potentially experience a stress on air pollution, and also depending how the city is planned, if it's not, then you will witness unplanned urban sprawl. And what COVID has actually made us realize that in poor and densely populated urban areas in the cities, we run the risk of actually spreading the disease further. So it's not just about city planning, but it's also about how communities themselves are aware, are resilient enough to rise up for the occasion for COVID-19. So let me now take you to how we view sustainable built environment in the cities. Not sure whether you guys are familiar with the Lendlease approach. We view sustainability from three big core lens. Number one is a city that we build or a place that we build must be fostering sustainable economic growth. Number two, it must encourage the growth and development of vibrant and resilient community. So I think this part already demonstrates that a built environment is not sufficient until you also touch on the social aspects, which are the people living, working, and playing in that space. And third, having just economic growth and a vibrant community and city is not sufficient. You must create also an environment, a built environment that is conducive for a healthy environment and protect the well-being of people. So how do we do this as a company in general is we break these three core things down and we look at where is it in our core business that we can influence in the way we build the space, whether it's a precinct, it's a building. But building is not enough. I think for me, more importantly is once a building is done, how does that structure itself fosters a behavioral change? How does that structure actually is built to be resilient, can last for 100 years? How does that structure ensure that the materials used to build that structure is sustainably sourced or has low carbon? So these 6 areas are, and you can easily Google up this framework online, we ensure that we build responsibly using resources and materials that are low carbon and sustainably sourced. We also make sure that if we're building in Kuala Lumpur, wherever we are in whatever city, that we actually procure local talents and local companies throughout the build process. The third thing is climate action. And I think this is one thing we cannot deny already, although maybe certain world leaders are still grasping with the reality of it, but climate change is here to stay. And we are committed as a company to look at how we can build environments that are climate resilient and climate that provides adaptational features in terms of design for communities. Lastly, fourth thing is community inclusion. I think that is a very key ingredient in a sustainable built environment. A place is only as great as its people. That's how I look at it. We can see many constructions happening, many developments happening, but where the place is dead when people don't feel a sense of belonging, or perhaps the location is not good, or maybe for whatever reason, it just doesn't draw community there as users and participants. So community inclusion actually is a very key recipe ingredient as well to ensuring that whatever space we build is built to last, has a sense of ownership by the people around there. The last two is nature pollution and well-being. And I think this is almost, I would say most companies are incorporating this into their business DNA already, ensuring that they're operating responsibly, ensuring that mitigation is in place so that they can reduce pollution and at the same time look at protecting the well-being of people. So from that perspective, you know that cities are all going to be facing tremendous amount of stress. And on top of that, we are also challenged with understanding what sort of technology will make the most financial sense and viability in terms of putting it out there. So I'm going to bring you back to a more local context now. Cities are stressed, therefore how we build is important. How people live, how we equip people to live in a resilient and vibrant manner is also very important. And lastly, does the city have spaces, have urban spaces or pockets of spaces that allows people to get positivity, whether through mental health or through healthy living or active living. So I think these three ingredients are critical when you're addressing a sustainable built environment. I'm not going to now take you out from this big picture perspective to understanding what's happening right here in our backyard in the TRX City Precinct. I think there are many innovations sitting there to ensure that whatever that we're working on at the precinct is not just built to last, but built to serve the needs of evolving social changes and evolving needs of communities. So one of the things which I think later you will have a QR code to scan. That QR code, which I think Dr. Nurul will share with you later.
I will share the QR code right now.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Okay, here, I think all the viewers out there can use their phone to scan this QR code to bring you to what Yasmin is talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can take a picture of it and scan it later. In any case, you can just go to the Exchange TRX CCAR, Climate Change Adaptation and Resilience. We're pretty happy that we commissioned a study to actually do a temperature check on whether buildings that we're building over at TRX are, especially the design components, subscribe to being climate resilient adaptation. As you can see, tell right now, I don't know, but if most of you guys are, what year were you born? When I was 10 years old, we've never heard of things like that. But now today, our children are getting used to things like, hay season, and now getting used to wearing masks at school. So there is a clear indicator here that there is a deterioration in the environment. And I think built environments need to take this into consideration. So for TRX, I think we look at very high level variables, haze that contributes to air pollution, temperature. KL is getting hotter. And at the rate we're running the city, if we don't do something substantially to balance off that, there may be massive heat strokes that you will see moving towards the future. There's also a lot of flood. I think we all went through that last week.
Yes, yes.
Hopefully not today. I went through it a little bit yesterday. So the built environment need to be very flood resistant or flood resilient. And this is not going to reduce in intensity. The reality is this is going to increase in intensity. And then, of course, lastly would be the biodiversity spaces. The TRX looks into these components to ensure that we try our very best to ensure that in terms of design, materials, in terms of how we procure or work with our contractors, in terms of our strategic engagement, in terms of our park design, our selection of species for trees and saplings, all that takes into consideration this dimensional aspect of sustainable built environment. And lastly, I think if anything, that link that you can scan, you will learn on the TRX Exchange website, which has a whole lot of other material, as well as YouTube videos to give you a flavor of what to expect above and below ground at TRX. So maybe just to end this session, I have a very short session, and also because I don't have slides. TRX currently is sitting on a in situ, I think it's the country's first in situ wastewater and recycling plant. And I think in the future, this is something that probably is inevitable and needs to be considered very seriously in all development, in which areas and cities that you build need to focus on being carbon positive, carbon neutral, or at least net zero carbon. I think this is the future forward in terms of how we need to work collectively on decarbonization efforts. So for TRX right now, with the wastewater technology we have called Viola sitting underneath the sink, we actually have the opportunity to reduce 50% of our potable water use. And all the wastewater from the precinct is recycled and upcycled to be used for chilling, for irrigation, as well as flushing. This is just one small innovation. I believe that the future is very interesting and dynamic. You can see a lot of technologies now integrating, look at coming up with innovative solutions for the built environment already. So I guess I don't sound that interesting. I'm not a technologist or engineer or even an architect to begin with. But on the sustainability front, this is one thing all of us tuned in on this show right now need to be aware. Sustainability is not optional, it's an imperative. And it's imperative to ensure that from A to Z of a built environment, from how you acquire the land, how the land is treated, from how your soil is excavated, and where does this soil go to eventually running and operating that built environment. Sustainability is now already embedded in it throughout that process. So I hope that this small discussion, we can actually look at more innovations within the academia as well as industry and look at more research opportunities as well, because I think KL still has a lot of room to grow And we are now looking at a lot of urban regeneration exercises in the city. It's almost like we're given a second chance to rebuild a new Kuala Lumpur that is resilient, vibrant, and also, if possible, within my lifetime, can claim it to be a city that is climate um, it can adapt and be resilient to climate. So that's all I have to share today, Dr. Nurul and team. And I'm more than happy to take the questions if there are any.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Yasmin.
Mhm.
We talk about community for sustainable living. So, I mean, I can see that Lendlease has done a lot so far, but I'm quite worried that the community out there, the public, is not quite ready with all this. This platform basically is one of the means for social awareness, for public awareness in terms of to educate the general public basically.
Yeah.
But as an agency, how do you tackle the public and also to ensure that they also play a role to contribute for a better sustainable living and also, for example, the flood recently, one of the cause to it, one of them is because of the dumpings in the rivers as well and also the drains. So those are the mentality that we face right now. So how does Lendlease play the role to ensure that the actions, the strategies that Lendlease uphold, it reaches up to the ground root level?
So is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. So I think one thing I like to share as a fact, and I think this is a fact, community is never ready for drastic change. I think you and I, and most of the people tuning in as well, change is very difficult and it doesn't happen overnight.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I think as stakeholders, I would see Lendlease, Econites, UTM, all of you, IEN, we are all very important stakeholders. And if you take us out of the equation, you lose communicating to one targeted segment of community. So communities is very broad. And I think from the Lendlease perspective, we do focus a lot on communication, and communication goes two-pronged, internal and external. One is to get all people that work for us to be on board the same bandwagon, understanding why sustainable design matters, why sustainable operations matter. The other one is external partners and communities, working in partnership with them. In an ideal world, I love to work with everyone, but I'm only one person. So whoever we partner with and work with, we actually try to also influence them to look at whether we as partners share the same value driving sustainability in cities. And everyone's got a different interest and also expertise. So that requires a lot of tactful and strategic stakeholder engagement to ensure that you can come up with the best solution. And of course, if the solution is there, do you solve a short-term, mid-term, or long-term challenge related to sustainable built environment? So if you look at it, it's a massive project in progress and development. And community development is like that. To get from point A, I don't care about the environment, to point B, I recycle religiously, is an infusion of various tactics and strategies. You cannot get from A to B without strategic communication materials. You cannot get from A to B without showing people how to do it. You cannot get from A to B without giving them infrastructure to do it. And if by these three challenges already, you can tell infrastructure relies on government, right? Services, facilities, and so on and so forth. So from there, I hope I have alluded that engaging community is not rocket science, but at the same time has some science and methodology to it. That methodology is very complex and qualitative, but if I have to narrow it down to Lendlease, our approach is already quite structured globally. Whatever we do for community is to create a social impact value at 250 million Aussie dollars in the next 5 years. Meaning, whatever we're going to contribute back to the community should alleviate, say, governments or any assistance in that value. This is our contribution to build resilience in that community. But this is a global goal. So on the local side, the Malaysia office is also working on what can the Malaysia office build in terms of social impact value with communities that live within the catchment of research. So I hope I didn't sound too fluff about this, but I'm more than happy to engage some of the audience directly if you want to take the topic of community engagement development offline.
All right. Thank you, Yasmin. Moving on from empowering the community for sustainable living. Now we move on to our final panel. With me here in Institut Sultan Iskandar, Kuala Lumpur, we have Dr. Shuhaida. Shuhaida is our lecturer here with us, Associate Professor IR Dr. Shuhaida Ismail. She is currently the head of Green Cities and Construction Research Group, Razak Faculty, Technology and Informatics, UTM. As an industry experienced academician, namely the UK Chartered Engineer and Professional Engineer with practicing certificate with the Board of Engineers, Associate Professor IR Dr. Shuhaida Ismail has been invited as speaker in conferences and published more than 250 technical articles on sustainable cities and construction, project management, and also recently she's involved with various projects related to the COVID-19 crisis in the built environment. Okay, she currently leads Green City and Construction Research Group at University Technology Malaysia that undertakes research and consultation projects as well as organizes hands-on workshop training, global outreach and community engagement programs on sustainable built environment, civil engineering, construction management, and project management. Her topic today is embracing the new norms in stakeholders management amidst COVID-19 crisis, as well as talking on this topic from the academician point of view. Okay, the floor is all yours, Dr. Shuhaida.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nurul. Okay, so when I was first given the topic on COVID-19 crisis and on stakeholders management, that is one of the key area in project management, I would consider this topic as very close to our research group, that is Green Cities and Construction. We have been doing a lot of research on project management before, and recently on COVID-19 crisis. It's still ongoing research. So I would say this topic is very apt, okay, to our background as the RG. Okay, so before I touch on what are the embracement of new norms in managing stakeholders throughout this COVID-19 pandemic, okay, let us see. Okay, we will look into what have been these coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic's impact, give impact to the construction industry and to Malaysia as a whole. Okay, go to the next slide. Okay, so in general, in terms of Malaysian performance, okay, we could see here, as for the first quarter of 2020, we have been badly impacted in terms of our economic performance, where we record a very steep negative 1.7% of gross domestic products. Okay, this is considered the lowest compared to the 2009 when we had the global economic downturn at negative 1.51%. And the same pattern we can see as per construction industry performance, it also falls steeply, close to 45% in the second quarter of 2020. Even so, even with this low performance of both construction sector and the Malaysian economy as a whole, we still place a lot of commitment that we could secure a lot of contracts throughout this construction industry. However, we could see that even though we project that we could procure more contracts within the industry, we can only witness that we managed to procure negative 7.9% of contract for the first quarter compared to 1% last year. This includes non-residential buildings as well as residential buildings. And the same goes to civil engineering projects. For instance, the social services, hospitals, transportation systems, and whatnot. So we have to admit, even though with this low performance of construction industry, we still have put the high dependency on foreign construction workers. Okay, we, the construction sector, is in fact the second highest employer of foreign workers after manufacturing sector. That is at 430,000 people as of last year. Okay, we need to embrace. Okay, we need to understand. We need to make ourselves aware that unfortunately these high numbers of foreign workers or foreign migrants are actually fall under the marginalized and vulnerable communities, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so based on this statement, okay, when we look at this topic on how we embrace the new norms, whilst at the same time we manage to work together with the stakeholders to fight against this COVID-19 adverse effects, we would see that what the sustainable built environment that we perceived, at least as what GCCRG perceived from the perspective of construction industry. I was happy just now when Dato' Azumi was talking a lot about construction industry being the biggest ecosystem of the built environment. Thank you, Dato'. So at least I don't have to explain how this construction industry place themselves in the built environment. So when Dato' talked about the sustainable built environment just now, he was very much linked it, okay, to the green. Okay, but from the perspective of our topic today, okay, from the GCCRG's perspective, this sustainable built environment is very much linked to how the construction industry can be resilient. Okay, go back to Dr. Yasmin's talk just now, how resilient we are, okay, how resilient the industry to keep our momentum, okay, continuous momentum during this outbreak. Okay, so that we could continue building and maintaining the infrastructure, especially the crucial infrastructure like hospitals, for other industries to function, which eventually would add value to the capital resources and also national competitiveness. Okay, so what are the challenges ahead? This was the question posted to me by Dr. Nurul early this week. Okay, a very last minute notice from ISI. Okay, so what are the challenges despite this COVID-19 pandemic in managing our construction industry stakeholders? So based on the fact, okay, that 90% of construction activities are actually involving communication, okay, be it verbal, oral, okay, direct, face-to-face, okay, and based on the aforementioned statement just now that I showed about the statistic of how depending we are to the foreign construction workers, okay, especially the unskilled at 93%, where dominantly they consist of Indonesia and Bangladeshi and the rest others as shown in the slide by quoted from the CIDB entry in 2009. Okay, this diversity of different nationalities, different mother tongues, and even culture has caused communication breakdown, okay, communication problems amongst these foreign workers, as well as between the managerial officials and the foreign construction workers themselves. So this eventually has led, okay, evidently, it is solely evident that there are only a very minimal number of construction sites that comply with the SOP, especially during the movement control order in May to June. Okay, this is claimed by the Senior Minister of Infrastructure Cluster, also the Minister of Work, saying that only 9% of the contractors in Malaysia complied with this SOP. Okay, and when I was quite the talk by IR Kim just now really opens my eyes, yeah, on when he talked about the occupancy, the balance, privacy and interaction. Unfortunately, IR Kim, yeah, for our construction industry, especially in terms of our kongsi and construction labor quarters, these are not applicable at the moment. Okay, as we know, kongsi is usually cramped, overcrowded with too many construction workers. So it's very impossible to ensure that social distancing is being implemented effectively. So lower occupancy, balanced privacy interaction is a big no-no currently. Okay, as which eventually become the challenges to the construction industry in managing our stakeholders, okay, throughout the pandemic. And we can see in the CLQ, yeah, CLQ is the centralized foreign accommodation. Okay, it's being gazetted in 2018 by the Ministry of Works. Okay, so these foreign construction workers, they are currently living, okay, in this packed CLQ with their originally accustomed lifestyle. Okay, the way they eat, the way they, their daily activities are accustomed to their own culture way back in their country. So this eventually has increased the potential spread of the coronavirus, okay, in Malaysia. You can see, okay, it is evident when there are the many emergences of new construction site clusters in Malaysia, which, okay, amongst all, the cause is due to the construction workers who escaped during the COVID-19 swab tests. Okay, so why do they escape? One of the reason is because of the anxiety, because of the fear, especially amongst the legal ones. Okay, yeah, sorry, the illegal ones. Okay, thank you, Dr. Nurul. Okay, so back to the second question on how do we solve the challenges? Okay, how do we embrace the new norms? Okay, amongst our stakeholders. Yeah, so we know that it's been and already acknowledged that OSHI, occupational safety, health, environment practices have been in place, okay, in construction industry. However, due to this COVID-19 pandemic, we need to ensure the sustainability of our workers in terms of their well-being, in terms of their health, is being safeguarded. Okay, so this has become, the practices have become the new norms in construction industry. Okay, can we change a little bit because I can't see the slide. Okay. And okay, thank you. And back in. Yes. Okay. So a part of the efforts has been mandated by the CIDB recently, where they have been the social distancing on sites as well as the PPE. PPE is personal protective equipment that is complying with the WHO standards as well as the CIDB, Ministry of Health, as well as Ministry of Works. SOPs has been mandated, okay, where these non-compliances may subject to the legal action under the Act of 342 as well as Act 520. On top of that, various OSHI procedures have been also in place, okay, amongst all include the sanitary protocols. Both, all of these, what I'm talking about, is actually being implemented both at the sites as well as the CLQ, okay, or kongsi. Proper hygiene, toolbox stock, especially in terms of the requirement of the COVID-19, the newly recently announced SOPs, the system in tracking the health and well-being of the workers, the swab testing that ideally should be taken on the fortnightly basis, as well as the prompt reporting on the health issues related to COVID-19, especially related to the stakeholders within the site and the CLQ itself. So these are amongst the new norms that being done, okay, where the video conferences, teleconferences are also being acknowledged. Previously, it was not a part of the communication management tool under the Project Management Institute, but now it's being established as one of the new norms to be included in the tools of project management. And the same goes to IoT, we have to acknowledge that construction industry is extremely slow, okay, to adapt and to adopt the IoT infrastructure and premises, due to the 90% communication just now that I was talking about. Usually it involves the face-to-face communication. So we acknowledge that we are quite slow in the adoption. However, throughout this COVID-19, we have to embrace ourselves with this new norm to see what are the growing roles of this IoT to be embedded in our daily lives, in our construction site daily activities. And work from home, okay, everybody loves to work from home, at least for me. Okay, so these hybrid working conditions, okay, are expected to be embedded, okay, as a part of the new norm in construction industry, as to manage our stakeholders in preventing the further spread of coronavirus. So even though traditionally, okay, we need a physical presence, at least for the construction industry, to be on site, we are looking at the methods. Okay, these are amongst the studies that could be done, okay, by the industry, working together with the universities on the models that is suitable, that it's apt to be implemented in Malaysian construction industry, that allow and promote a hybrid working condition. And based on the fact that many of our supply chain has been interrupted due to this COVID-19, especially when our material supplies are mainly from China, we could have another alternative to look for suppliers from countries that is less impacted by COVID-19. This is again back to the resiliency of this construction industry. It would prepare the industry to be more resilient to future disruptions. For instance, probably future pandemics, yeah, or lockdowns. And finally, in terms of contract, okay, this is a very interesting topic which you can also expand, especially for the contractors. Okay? We should probably provide the legal shield, okay, the legal shield specifically in the contract with specific clauses, so that the contract could offer protection in the event of continued disruptions. Because currently, many legal companies or many legal association believe that construction companies, particularly the contractors, could be held responsible for delays or cost overruns that we have been facing throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so go back to the first question. What are the challenges? What are the solutions? Why do we need to do this? Why do we need to manage our stakeholders amidst the COVID-19 pandemic? Yeah, we have this construction industry transformation plan to prepare the industry towards a very highly productive sector in at least in Malaysia. These actions need to be undertaken mutually so that we could direct ourselves to the achievement of the sustainable development goals. So basically, when we are looking at the solutions, the challenges and the solutions, we are looking at these four perspectives. First, these solutions are meant to promote, or at least to safeguard, the good health and well-being of the construction workers, especially the underrepresented foreign workers, to promote decent work and economic growth, where at the same time we could continuously provide employability, and to provide infrastructure, especially the critical infrastructure for other industries, and eventually towards the achievement of sustainable cities and communities in Malaysia. Okay, with that, I thank you on behalf of Green Cities and Construction Research Group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shuhaida. That is quite an eye-opener for me. Okay, looking from the construction point of view and also managing the stakeholders. Well, I have one question that has been shared with me. Well, you talk about contractors. Okay, well, contractors, there are different size of contractors, small and also medium. So you mentioned also about how the technology would evolve, and also how the need for these contractors, also the stakeholders, to embrace the use of technology within this pandemic outbreak. So, how do you think that the take-up rate of the technology, and also it is expected to elevate the construction industry as well? And then, is it possible that these technology, especially to be adapted and to be, used widely among the small and medium size of the contractors?
Okay, thank you for the question, Dr. Nurul. To be fair, this question has been posted like long ago, even before the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, we have been most of the big contractors. Okay, they have been implemented this the so-called IoT, the ICT, the all this fourth industrial revolution. Even though at the small part, since these big contractors, they are not the dominant parties, the dominant players of the construction industry. However, looking at the current situation of the crisis, the word is embrace, and another term is leverage. Okay, when we talk about IoT, when we talk about ICT, when we talk about fourth industrial revolution, the industry that would come out from my mind, or I believe all, is manufacturing. They have used this dominantly, okay, throughout their processes, throughout their stages. However, it's being implemented nominally in construction industry due to our resistance. Okay, we play safe with our communication mode on a daily construction activities practices. So what we can do now is that instead of BIM, for instance, BIM, the building information modeling, I think it was touched a little bit by Dr. Azumi just now, is the integrated working platform where all the construction players, I'm talking about the professional construction players, the contractors, the architects, the consultants, and even the local authorities, work together in one platform, okay, to deliver the end product of the projects, to deliver the premises throughout this IoT platform. Okay, eventually, currently, before this COVID-19, is being implemented only by big companies who have money. Okay, but with this assistance by the government, okay, we have the Hati, we have all this injection by the Minister of Finance. I would believe that we could foresee the expansion of IoT adoption in Malaysia construction industry to the benefits not only for the construction industry, it would increase the employability, and it also increase the confidence amongst the nation, because we contribute, as I said, throughout the SDG goals. Yeah, it's actually the construction industry plays a very important role in impacting the other sectors and industry in the country.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shoida.
10 minutes.
Yes. Well, we're quite right on time. We have only 10 minutes left. So I believe that we can take a few more other questions from the audience. Well, basically, I have quite a number of questions already. So, okay, let me see. So it's quite a lot, actually. Okay, let me look at it one at a time. Okay, all right. Okay, yes, I have an interesting question. It's about working from home. I believe most of us, we are more than prepared to work from home, actually. Well, here, a question asking, by adopting work from home culture, it would also imply that the usual productivity operation cost of an organization, company, is partly being shouldered by the workers. Okay, do you think the contribution by the workers on this aspect should be somewhat recognized and appreciated? Well, me working from home for 3 months during the MCO, there's a jump in my electricity bill. my water bills and whatnot. The use of air conditioning at home have increased tremendously, and as well as I have to, I have to fight for my laptop with my children for their online classes as well. So, how do you panels look into this? And also, are Malaysian homes ready to, carry on with the work from home, routine? So, I believe um, I think all of you can look into this based on your expertise. So, who may want to start first?
I can take the question if you
Yes.
don't mind. Okay. So as an employer myself, also I have similar question asked by my employees. Okay. We have to understand the balance of it. For example, now, okay, if the staff is working from home, so of course they consume the electricity, the internet data because they're working from home using their own facility. But some of the officers, I know that in even my office also, we provide laptop to some of those who don't really have a computer facility at home. They can bring home the office laptop, and but they have to look at the benefit that they have for when they're working from home. They don't have to spend time traveling to go to the office. In KL, easily you will spend 45 minutes to an hour a day going to the office and coming back from the office. So you save 1.5 hours to 2 hours a day. And not just in terms of time, the saving to the employees themselves is also on the cost of traveling.
Yes.
So the cost of traveling, if you drive to the office, you can avoid paying for the petrol, for the tolls, for the parking. So both the employers and employee must look at the benefit to both sides. So there's a benefit to the employee in terms of flexibility. Maybe by working at home, some of them they don't need to send their kids to the nursery because they still can look after the kids at home while doing the work at the desk. And there's some saving in that sense as well. And of course, to the employers also, okay, there's some benefit that by allowing the employee to work at home, the employer must understand that that we should tolerate to the some to certain level of flexibility. So we cannot sometimes it happened to me, okay, during the working from home when I call my staff from my home, and then she said, sorry, I cannot talk to you now, okay. Although it's working hours, I'm at the counter paying for my grocery. Now, can I call you back? I say, oh, okay, these are office hour, but you're doing the grocery shopping, but I can tolerate with that as long as after that you still come back and do the work for me. And sometime we can arrange the meeting in the evening after working hours at night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So we must understand there must be certain tolerance between the employee and also the employers. So it's not fair for the employee to ask, okay, I want to my electricity bill to be reimbursed. But of course, some company they give some compensation to cover that as well. But we have to understand, okay, under certain situation, difficult situation, we must tolerate not just employer tolerate the employee has to tolerate the employers as well. So that's my view, and I believe that in future this is going to be the norm. So and the benefit is not just one side, the benefit is both sides. If I have more employees to stay at home, I don't need a very big space to pay for the rent.
Well, I think it depends on what kind of person you are to be able to maximize. You're the one that is more productive working from home, or you're more productive having a combination of it. But I would like to say again, coming from a female's perspective, especially if you have children, it's not that easy to separate work from
Yes.
a role as as well. And I think many husbands also tuning in. When your wife is working from home, also sometimes maybe you expect certain things to be, coming from a wife, but actually it is working hours, so
Yeah,
it
I
it
totally
does cause
agree.
a lot of conflict. And I think I have met lay people who can't wait to go back to office,
Yes.
be honest, because it's more stressful at home when you have to change your hats all the time. So I think, like, as you're right, Dato, moving forward, this is going to be the new norm. You're all going to be very nomadic in the future.
Mhm.
Your boss could be in UK, you're hired in KL.
Yeah.
And there are some companies today that actually give you an office setup package.
Yeah.
Your desk, your PC, semua tu, your aircon, so that you can be a digital employee all across the other part of the world. So I think moving forward with the millennials, with the I lost count already, but beyond Gen Z is I don't know what Gen, uh, that we need to, like I said, we need to start slowly evolving and changing to the needs of this new norm in the future.
I totally agree with you. In fact, I remember when we offered to work from home from some of our PAM staff. They choose not to work from home. They say I prefer to work in the office. It's difficult for them to do some of them feel that it's very difficult to do work from home. So that's why I think it should be some flexibility. Yeah, I agree with you. Some people are more productive at home. I believe I'm more productive at home. I don't like to go to office.
Any points from IR Kim?
Yeah, so
Kitchen phones ready for working from home environment.
So I think the both of the points raised by Dr. Yasmin as well as Dato is very relevant because what we have is it's a small operations in office. We have 16 people in our company, and because of that, we can offer very flexible choices to the team. Essentially, people decide when they want to come to the office and when they want to work from home. And we've heard both sides of the coin where some people, especially the ones with family at home with young kids who are not yet going to school, will definitely prefer to come to office. And in flip side, those who are either without kids or kids are away, they are happy working from home because they get full sort of privacy to focus on work. But I think aside from that, it goes a lot to mutual trust and also engagement. In terms of mutual trust, is that especially critical in the Southeast Asian type of upbringing. We're used to being policed. We're used to people watching over us to like, oh, okay, now it's a working hour, now it's a studying hour, now it's a schooling hour. Someone has to be standing there next to you to make sure you're doing it. So we're brought up in that some mentality. So now we are having to switch our system to we have that no one around to watch over us, but we know we have a deadline. We have to be productive on our own. Secondly, is engagement because not everyone knows how to speak out if they are uncomfortable with a particular arrangement. It's also sort of not a common culture in our upbringing where we say out if we are unhappy about something. We learn to keep it inside, So if we as employers we promote this engagement as employees, we get them to practice the engagement and tell us if, for example, some people their electricity bills goes up a bit, or the internet bill they have to subscribe to new internet, and for them it's actually significant. So if that is the case, then we can talk to them on case by case basis. But for some people, it doesn't. I mean, it's not. For example, I have high speed internet at home anyway, so there's no additional cost. So if we have a personalized engagement, we can solve it sort of person to person rather than a broad policy throughout. I think.
Yes, yes. Okay, how about you, Dr. Shaida?
Okay, very short one. Okay, just want to share with you the result. This is unpublished, Dato', unpublished. Don't quote me later. It's the unpublished results. Okay, we just undertaken this one research on challenges of women in STEM in Malaysia amidst COVID-19 pandemic. So we listed like 37 challenges, okay, faced by women in STEM in Malaysia throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. So surprisingly, okay, when we compare to the United Nations reports, okay, mostly the top three would be domestic violence, exposure to domestic violence, and the unemployability and whatnot. However, surprisingly, for Malaysian perspective, the number one is managing homeschooling.
Yeah.
Okay, managing homeschooling, followed by increased taking responsibilities for the elderly, distraction from family members while working from home. But these are very much related to WFH, work from home. These are actually rooted from work from home. Okay, I think that's all. That answers the question.
Share the study later, doctor.
Later. Taiwan conference. I will share it.
Share the betul.
Yes, this is actually very interesting because today, UTM Kuala Lumpur, we're having the coffee day. So basically, yes, today. So actually, we are not encouraged to bring cars to work today for those
Wow.
UTM Kuala Lumpur.
I read. Today
So
I read.
actually, when we have a coffee day event, it's best to work from home rather than coming even via the public transportation. So I think yes, UPM actually is doing well with managing work from home because as a lecturer, we do work 24/7. We work around the clock and we have online teaching. So we some sort of we don't waste. We already embrace the new norm actually, and we can continue despite the pandemic is over later on. So any take home message from the panel? Last words before we end the session. I think it has been quite very fruitful and insightful for all of us.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I saw there's one question by Professor Dr. Syed about the flood in Kuala
Oh,
Lumpur.
yes.
So I think that is very interesting question. The question is that whether now maybe the City Hall should consider stop the further development with this. I think about 4 years ago there was a flooding happened in near IOI IOI Mall Puchong. Similar question was asked, okay, whether we should spread the development to other places, to more green area, okay, rather than to focus on in one particular area. There was some articles by a few I don't want to mention the profession that, but there was article actually says that maybe now we should look into spreading development rather than a very intense development in certain area. I don't really agree with that statement. The reason why, if we start doing that to spread development everywhere, at the end, we will have development all over the world and we don't have enough space for green area. So we cannot be chopping down our forests to develop more and more. So I think we shouldn't stop developing for a city like Kuala Lumpur. We cannot use the reason flood to stop the development. What we should do, basically, the development has to be concurrent with the development of the infrastructure. If the current capacity cannot take the rain, cannot handle the water management system, I think the focus of development is how to manage the flood, the water management system before we allow other development. But it does not mean that we stop at all. So what we usually neglect is that when we start to build the building, the road infrastructure, we forgot, okay, to prepare the infrastructure master plan for the drainage system, for the utility system. We always talk about planning for the city in terms of the development, the density, zoning control, but we don't really have a good infrastructure master plan. Do we have the infrastructure master plan? How is the drainage network? How is the electricity supply, the utility supply network? How's the sewage treatment network? Most of this utility and the infrastructure for the drainage system were done in the ad hoc basis. When I have the development here, and then certain authority or department say, okay, now you need to do retention pond, you need to do the drainage system. By right, the infrastructure has to be done in a proper manner. We must have the infrastructure master plan, and it has to be constructed even before the development comes into that area. I think we should look into this to avoid such incident like flooding or flash flooding in the city. That is my view.
Yes, yes. Kuala Lumpur is known to have ad hoc planning. So even right from historically, it has been like that. But now to undo what we have done, it's quite tricky and tough. However, that is what we need to be. That's how it need to be done, actually. So yeah, and then physical development and infrastructural development, it must go tally, right, Dato? Yeah, and then
Yes.
and then we also need to consider the climate change and how to be more resilient, and well as within this pandemic outbreak. So there's lots of issues going on, and of course there's lots of things still that need to be discussed, and we need the collaboration from all the professions, the stakeholders, and whatnot.
Okay.
So any last word, Dr. Shuhaida?
That's all I think.
IR Kim? Okay,
They're all
Yasmin?
Sorry, I'm fine. No, nothing to add.
Okay. Prof. Said Iskandar, do you have anything?
Nothing to say really, but I truly enjoy the session. I thank all members of the panel. It was great. The points that you have presented and you put forward was indeed very, very enlightening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Said.
Okay. Before we end, can we have a virtual photo session? Yasmin, can you turn on your camera, and also the participants? Can you also turn on your camera so
Sure.
that we can have a photo
Evidence.
session?
Group picture.
Wherever you are, at home, at office, or in the car, please.
In the car.
Okay. So, okay, is everyone on? Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, that wraps up our session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll look for the second series.
Yes, we look forward to have the second series, the ISI webinar second series, and hope all of you will join us again soon. All right, thank you to all panels.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
bye. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.